Hello, and thanks for joining me today on Discovering My Money. Today we're going to be talking about basic budgeting. So if you are always short money, you're perpetually going into your overdraft, or you just don't understand living paycheck to paycheck, I think this is a good video for you. So you'll stick around and I'm going to go through a basic budget. Now you may be asking, how can I fix this problem? You may not know exactly where to start. First step is to really understand that you need to make changes. You can start small and then make changes based on your needs or what your wants are. So recently I was talking to a friend who couldn't understand why they never had any money. They made decent money and they kept falling further into debt, and they didn't understand why this was happening. So I asked, do you want me to do a basic budget with you? And she said yes. This is where I'm going to help you get control of your money. I'm going to break down what you need to be successful and get a grip on your budget that's going to help you with your money. So before we can really dive into it though, I'm going to start with a few things you need to know about budgeting. So in the simplest form, what is a budget? Well, a budget is really just a plan for your money. Before you can start breaking it down, you need to understand the two things, which is income and expenses. So income is obviously coming in and expenses are going out. Both income and expenses have two components. One is fixed and one is variable. On the fixed side, of course, that is something that is always the same, therefore fixed. Variable is something that is changing from month to month or over time. So the first step here is to take your last month's income and expenses and put them into categories, and we're going to start doing that right now. All right, so starting with the budget, and like we said, there's two parts. So we have income and expenses. Income and expenses both have the two parts, and those are fixed and variable. So with those two categories, of course, like we said, the fixed is something that's the same every month. Variable is different. And we're looking through our last month's bank statements. And we're going to, of course, start with a salaried income, which is going to be the easiest fixed one. Of course, if you're getting paid monthly, that's super easy. You just put in the one number. If you're getting paid bi-weekly, a little bit more challenging, but we're only going to use two pay periods. If you end up having 3 in the month that you're looking at, only do 2. We're going to talk about that in a future video, how we set up bi-weekly incomes to help manage our budget, and same with bi-weekly expenses. Hopefully you have income and expenses that coincide, so it's a little bit easier, but we're basically going to only use 2 of a bi-weekly if you get paid twice a month, or weekly. Same thing with weekly. If you happen to have 5 paid, don't do 5, do 4. Okay. That is pretty much really simple for salary. But if we're looking at variable, you might get things like commissions. So commission, dividends. You might have a part-time job, might have varying hours, might have different pay depending on how you're getting paid for it. So anything that's different like that, or bonuses, anything you might get a paycheck that comes out, like dividends might be quarterly, so you might not get it every month, but you still want to keep track of that. So if you are collecting dividends from an investment and you didn't get it in the month you're looking at, take a look where it is. We're not going to include it per se, but it's important. Now, where you really want to be specific, if you don't have a salary, but maybe you bill out customers, so you're getting paid based on billing, so that can vary based on which customers have paid you back, especially if you're doing contract work. And then how do you pay yourself as an individual when your business is maybe waiting a month, 2 months, even 3 months for some people to pay you. It could be longer, of course, but basically you're going to have a general amount of money coming in, and that's going to vary based on how you're able to collect on that. So if we go over to expenses and we looked at the fixed side, the obvious one is rent/mortgage. And that is usually a fixed amount. Again, mortgages can be bi-weekly. We can also look at our car. the insurance that goes into the house and the car. So those things are usually the same every month. Again, car can be bi-weekly, mortgage can be bi-weekly, but take two, we're going to, again, on a more advanced note, start talking about when you have 3 pays or three times the expenses in a month. We'll talk about how we're going to deal with that. Again, if you're getting those, if you set up your expenses to be bi-weekly, hopefully you're getting paid bi-weekly. So it's a very easy fix. If we go over to our expenses, you might have things like groceries that are variable. You're going to have entertainment. So entertainment can also be a variable expense. And those are things that you're going to want to categorize, to start with very broadly. So entertainment could be a lot of different things. Groceries is not only going to be food, but it's going to be cleaning supplies and other things that you need to pick up at the grocery store. But you maybe wouldn't categorize them together, as far as cleaning supplies are obviously different than food, right? So in the basic setup for the budget, we're going to go groceries is kind of covering everything. Entertainment can include things you do for fun, like maybe going out to a restaurant, like a fancy restaurant, going to a show, going to, some type of an event. Those things can all be put under entertainment. But again, the more you break things down, the easier it is. So if it's a variable expense that's happening on a regular basis, like I'm going to the coffee shop for breakfast every morning, it can be a variable expense because I may not buy the same thing every day. Maybe I do. Maybe I can say it's a fixed expense. But nonetheless, I may want to break that down because it might be something that I want to make changes to. Whereas if I go to a concert, that may not happen every month even, but I'm going to include it in here because I might have that dollar spent on a concert this month, but next month I might do other things that have the same type of expense, just it's going to vary. Okay. So just keep in mind, while we're doing our categories, we're also putting totals for each one of them. So you're going to add up the totals. If you come across something that's not on your list, create a new category for it and add the total for that amount. Go through the whole month, add it up, make sure it goes. So once we're there, we're going to create totals, and we're going to now see how we are spending our money and how we're bringing our money in, and we're going to see how much that is adding to everything. So we can break it down as much as we want, but for the basic one, we just want to have the totals. We're going to create a new total. Now you might be wondering, why would I break everything down into these 4 categories just to bring it down to 2, and then of course go to what I already know, whether I'm making money or losing money at the end of my month, right? But here's the thing. We want to just confirm how we're doing and be specific based on what we're at for that specific month. And then of course, anything that might be changing for the month, like if our variable expenses change every month or our variable income's changing every month, we want to identify that and see where we can make those improvements. Now, some things like groceries, I said it's variable. For myself though, I actually put that over here because I set my groceries up as a fixed expense, and that's what I'm allowed to spend on food. So I do my groceries as food, and that's not only what I'm buying at the grocery store, it is food that I'm buying at the coffee shop if I go and have breakfast at the coffee shop, or if I go out for a meal on a Friday night. Those are now actually food expenses, right? So I'm going to change this to food. That's kind of messy, but that is now a food expense. I'm not allowed to go over that on a weekly basis. I even know what my daily amount is. And as long as I stay under that, then I'm good. So that is the discipline I'm trying to have. And anytime I'm over, that means I have a plus down here in that category. And that's going to help me with other things that we're going to get to in a minute. You don't have to go and make these drastic changes. You could still keep variable expenses, but then you're just going to have control on those variable expenses. You may have to do something similar and say, I only have the opportunity to go out and spend so much on my groceries on a weekly basis. And I'm also going to say for food, I'm going to go for that morning coffee, but I'm going to make breakfast at home and I'll get my coffee, but I'm not going to get a breakfast sandwich, or I'm not going to get a muffin, or I'm not going to, that extra thing that always ends up adding up that makes your variable expense you know, that's going to make it climb, where we want to try and lower this down. Now, the other thing you can do, like this is really talking about lifestyle changes. If I'm stopping at the coffee shop, it's because I'm sleeping in, because I'd rather stay up late and I don't want to take the time to make breakfast. And it's a lifestyle thing, right? So I'm okay with that kind of lifestyle, or I want to save more money and I'm going to start getting up early in the morning. On the other hand, there's other things that may not need a lifestyle change. Like under my fixed expenses, I may have streaming, right? So I'm just going to put this down here. So we have streaming, but I don't watch all the streaming channels every month. I maybe pick one and I watch a show, and that's all I watch, but I'm signed up for 4 of them, so I can cancel the other 3. The great thing about streaming is you can sign up any time you want. So I'm watching this streaming channel right now, and I'm going to cancel at the end of the month, and I'm going to watch something else next month, right? So it just depends on how it's going to affect you. If I'm not watching it anyway, it's not a lifestyle change. I don't need to worry about it, and I can just get rid of it and add it back when I want to, based on how it fits into my budget. And if I'm only, you know, watching one at a time, I've just saved however much money per month on all these different streaming services. Now, it may not seem like a lot because they're not all super expensive, but they all add up, right? So if you have streaming and you have different apps on your phone that you're not using, you want to be able to get rid of those things, and they're not going to change how you're living your life because you're not using them anyway. That is an important aspect of budgeting, which we can get into, that's super easy to do. And it's just a matter of making these categories so we can start identifying how our money is being spent. Once we've gone through our income and expenses and we kind of give ourselves kind of an outline of a budget, there's things that we can now look at, and we can look at reducing debt. Right, so that's a big one. If you're someone who is finding that you're more on the negative side of that plus negative, and this is where you're finding yourself, reducing your debt is a big thing that's going to actually help you get to the positives. Because as we reduce that debt, especially credit card debt, every time the credit card is charging you, it's a lot more than you really want. And if we can get out of that credit card debt, we're going to eliminate this and start adding to that. Once we get rid of our debt, now we're going to go look at savings, and we'll be doing future videos about these things. But savings, especially retirement, is huge. And as you get older, you're going to want to really try and maximize this, because you start to realize that your ability to work at a certain level is decreasing, diminishing, and you don't really want to be working until you're 70. You'd rather retire at 55. Of course, the older you get, the more you realize that might not be possible. So you really want to start focusing on savings. And if we can realign our budget, we may be able to increase the amount going in here and decrease the debt side of it, which is going to then turn around and come back as savings. So this is something that a budget can really help you start planning for, and is usually important, as you go on in years. Maybe when you're younger, you don't see the same importance for it, but it is something that a budget is usually beneficial to help you set up and get more of these positives and reducing those negatives. Some of the other things a budget may help you do is save for a house. You can budget for a car, vacations. If you are thinking vacations are your priority, you may be setting yourself up for failure, because vacations really lead to that negative side, especially if you start putting money on credit cards to pay for them. But you can really help yourself set up there. All the expenses that go into a house, they can, for your home, you can really budget for that and start planning for things that you might be needing to do, upgrades or renovations or whatever it may be. You can also use a budget for things that are going to break down, like you're going to want to have a new fridge, right? Fridge, dishwasher, so on and so forth. So all these things, you can help budget for things you need to be replaced, getting your roof redone, getting your fence redone, whatever it is. Anything that goes along with the home, a budget can help you plan those things out and be ready for them before they show up. So again, the basic budget though is really just about figuring out what your income is, and if it's just one thing, that's super easy, and then going through your expenses. And this is probably most important to get yourself in the fixed and variable area. If you have variable income, you definitely want to identify how that works for you so you can cover your fixed and variable expenses. But this is really the simple part. Get your income, get your fixed and variable expenses, get your totals, and then you can start evaluating from there. And we're going to do future videos, so definitely watch out for those. All right, so that's really all you need to know to start a basic budget. It might seem really simplified, but all you have to do is just get started at it. Make it really simple like that. Add in what the categories are, like I said, mortgage, your salary, and put in the amount on the appropriate side on income or expenses, and just make those 4 columns, get your totals, and that's all you got to do to kind of give yourself an idea where you can go from there. And essentially, it's not actually telling you what to spend yet. We're going to go forward in a future video, so I hope you'll click subscribe and like to follow along in this series, because I'm going to make a whole series of videos explaining how this can actually help you to budget your money and hopefully give you more cash flow, and that is the goal, right? Either more cash flow or more savings, so that you are going to be less stressed about your money and get the benefits that you're looking for. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time on Discovering My Money.